It's clear that food systems cause 30% of emissions, and a third of all food is wasted.
Hello, I'm Roy Reynolds, and welcome to this week's edition of A Closer Look, where we take behind the headlines of some of the biggest stories of the day. This week we're talking about food security and the effect that climate change has on it. Joining me this week is my colleague John Dennehy, who's been interviewing one of the UN's most senior food security officials about the inextricable link between climate change and food security. John, it's a fascinating topic and one that is going to affect many people. Could you tell us a bit more about what we've been hearing?
Yeah, we spoke to Keva Zahidi, who is the director of the Office of Climate Change at the Food and Agriculture Organization, and it was about how the food crisis is inextricably linked to the climate crisis. He painted a pretty worrying kind of a picture where you have, in terms of food supply, you have a sort of a situation where the COVID-19 pandemic is still having an effect. You have a cost of living crisis that's affecting food systems. And also you also have issues of conflict and pro-governance across the world, which is impacting it. And you also have then, of course, the backdrop of very severe situation regarding climate change. I mean, you have monsoons, you have heat waves, you have extreme weather events that's really, really impacting the world's food systems.
We've seen rice shortages in India, and we've also seen, we're yet to see the effect of this boiling hot summer in Europe as well on food. Some of the world's biggest food producers are also some of the poorest, and they've obviously been struggling to cope with this situation. What does he advocate, and what can we do to help these countries?
What he spoke about clearly was trying to move away from the doom and gloom headlines and try to look at more kind of solutions. It's clear that food systems cause 30% of emissions, and a third of all food is wasted. But what they're trying to do is trying to move the focus onto these solutions like regenerative agriculture, like soil restoration, and particularly important in the context of the upcoming climate conference here, Cop28, is finance. Finance is really, really crucial in trying to get funds to those sort of farmers on the front lines in terms of helping them to adapt to climate change. Things like maybe heat tolerant crops or more efficient water systems, anything really that can help them deal with and cope with these rising temperatures.
We've heard from the UAE's Environment Minister, who says that she wants to make Cop28 the food COP, for food security to take centre stage. Come November in Dubai, what sort of conversations can we expect to be hearing, and what sort of outcomes might we get?
Yeah, so over the last few weeks, we've been learning a lot more about the UAE's vision for COP28, and we heard from the UAE Climate Minister, Miriam Al-Maheri, who really laid out how food and agriculture are going to be a really central part of COP28. There's going to be a dedicated food day that's going to, address these issues. There's also going to be, she said particularly that food's going to have a very central place in COP28, the strongest push ever at a climate summit. We're also going to see a pretty comprehensive food and agriculture pavilion that will be jointly run, will be run by the FAO and a couple of other bodies that are really going to showcase some solutions as to how farmers might be able to benefit and what people can do to kind of limit the effects of climate change. So I think we can expect really a very major and big role for food at COP28.
So at COP28, we're going to see a lot of talk on roundtables and a lot of pledging by various governments to tackle all aspects of climate change. But that needs to be translated to actual action. What sort of outcomes might we see if we get a positive outcome from COP?
It's always hard to see the sort of link between what's negotiated at a COP and then the actual effects. And what Keva Zahidi said was that you're not going to solve the issue in a negotiating room. As important as it is, you have to get out onto the front lines and try and help there. And that's really where finance comes in. Climate finance is absolutely critical to getting on top of this issue in two ways. Countries have to deliver on this 100 billion a year pledge that was made a couple of years ago. Some of that money needs to be diverted to these farmers on the front line, small farmers particularly, whose livelihoods depend on agriculture, to help them adapt to the crisis. And secondly, at COP27 last year, we had a loss and damage fund agreed. Now, much of that remains to be decided on, like how it works, who pays into it, where the money comes from. That's also important in helping countries deal with the effects of climate change where they can no longer adapt. So finance is critical.
John, thank you very much for joining us. Well, that's it for this week. Thank you for joining us. Remember, you can check out any of our previous episodes on our website or on YouTube. And if you have any suggestions for future episodes, you can leave them in the comments below. Thanks again.